So the theme of this talk is, do ads have to suck? Let's just start with that. Do they?
Thanks again.
They do.
They do.
There's no escaping it. No. I mean, I think that one of the things that I found kind of most sort of kind of disheartening about advertising on the internet today is it's all been kind of defined and relegated to these little blue links. And if you look at the advertising industry as a whole, I mean, it's an incredibly creative, incredibly capable industry that's constantly pumping out some of the most compelling media out there in the world today. I mean, that's why people go into that industry. They've got these, Mad Men aspirations, and again, right now they're all being kind of squeezed into these, hyper-optimized, hyper-targeted models where you're basically trying to deliver the little blue link at the exact right moment, rather than trying to tell stories that make people want to be customers, make people want to get their driver's license, as soon as they're old enough and run out and buy an Audi.
Yeah, and yet you're integrating advertising into Tumblr now. So how do you square that?
Well, it's exactly that. I mean, it's an opportunity for those advertisers that have been frustrated by the little blue links, giving them a chance to tell those stories and inspire whole new customers that didn't know that they cared about this kind of product, that they cared about this brand, and get them to care.
How does that go over when you try to sell that both to advertisers and your investors? Because there's a lot of competition for advertising dollars, both with traditional media companies and with social media companies.
The conversation that we're having with these advertisers is one where we're showing them Tumblr is a place where 80 million people today are telling stories, creating media that's attracting an audience today, more than 170 million people all over the world, that they can be a part of that same ecosystem of creators, where again today on all of the existing networks, or sorry, I should say today on the major networks, they are again kind of reaching an audience in. They are kind of second to the primary media that those consumers are coming there for.
But advertisers, though they are fed from creativity, they kind of pay for an unfair advantage, right? I mean, when it comes to promoted tweets or advertisements that interrupt a program, they traditionally get more prominent play because they're giving you something for that. You're saying we have this wonderful community and you're kind of lucky to be part of it. Is that you're hoping that will work?
We're saying that they have, let's see, so we're again, giving them a forum where they have all of the same tools for expression that the rest of the community does. I mean, again, this is something that is kind of unique to Tumblr in that we are this incredibly expressive, hope that we continue to be this incredibly expressive, creative platform. People are showing up to make stuff, to tell stories and create compelling media. We're giving these creators the same set of tools to create that compelling media. So that the difference in the advertising products, they're all the same tools. There are no special brand pages, no special type of post for advertisers, no special unit that the advertisers get. They get all of the same tools. What they get for their ad spend is just elevation inside the community. That content that they're creating, those blogs and those posts are kind of lifted up to the top for a day.
Can you tell me how that works? Because I saw the talk that you did with Matthew Ingram from Gigom, and it seemed you seemed to suggest there wasn't an equivalent to promoted tweets, but you're also talking about elevation. Can you tell me how that works?
Sure. So on Tumblr today, we have 2 spots. We kind of have a few spots where we promote content, but primarily 2 that get the most visibility. One is called Tumblr Spotlight, where we promote blogs. It's very much a part of the onboarding funnel. So when somebody new is signing up for Tumblr and they're finding content to follow, they see a big selection of a few thousand of these curated blogs based on popularity and based on our editors, our editorial team. We also have a feature called Tumblr Radar. So Tumblr Radar sits right next to the content you follow on Tumblr. Everybody on Tumblr sees it. It receives about 120 million impressions every day. It is, again, a selection of the content, the new content with the highest velocity, the new post with the highest velocity, and then kind of curated, the best ofs curated by our editors. So that is a selection of some of the best stuff on Tumblr every day, about a couple dozen posts featured in there every day. And because we put that in front of the entire audience, that stuff goes on to become truly the most popular posts on Tumblr every day. So that is generally the most sought after spot on Tumblr. So as a creator, every time you hit publish, every time you're done tweaking your photo in Photoshop and creating the post on Tumblr and you hit publish, you're there's some little spark, some little thing in the back of your mind going like, man, I hope this makes it into radar. It's a big drive, a big part of the kind of promise of Tumblr is this notion that if this post is good enough, it might be the next one to blow up and go viral in our network, which is something that happens all the time. And again, our users are constantly being confronted with that Tumblr radar spot. They're constantly being confronted with those posts, showing them examples of creators going viral, blowing up with whatever their humble creation is. So advertisers are basically given the opportunity to take 5% of that attention every day. This most sought after spot on Tumblr now made available to advertisers.
So how do you do that? In traditional media, you have a certain ad rate for a big network, another ad rate for a smaller, niche kind of network. You have Tumblrs that are done by people like Beyonce that get a lot of attention, and you have smaller ones. Will you eventually develop different ad models for different kinds of Tumblrs, or will it always be this kind of one size fits all, or that the best content rises to the top?
I mean, there will potentially be other forms. I mean, what we love about this one is it's built on the two atomic elements of Tumblr today. We have blogs that have posts. So right now we have in the Spotlight the ability to promote a blog, in Radar the ability to promote a post. Those are both so much hinged on the quality of the content of those blogs and of those posts. So right now most of our energy, most of our attention, and most of what we expect to represent most of our ad business over the next few years is really those most creative advertisers. And I mean, the truth is, with those units, I mean, there's a very high ceiling of what this business means for us, and or the potential of this business, and that's where most of our energy is going at the moment.
So the last time I saw you was at the Wired conference in London, and I mentioned to you that I'd spoken to Mark Zuckerberg in 2008 or thereabouts, where the focus is really on growth. But a lot of the questions that I asked him then are the kind of questions that still are out there today. How are you going to monetize this activity? How convinced are you that you're going to be able to keep this level of control? You're going to be able to grow this advertising model without having to tweak and iterate to become something else like we've seen with Facebook and Twitter?
I mean, we started this feature 4 years ago. We launched Tumblr about a year and a half into developing Tumblr as a feature to promote great content across our network. And after about 4 years of running this feature and it becoming a core part of our service, again, this promise for creators that at any moment you can be featured and appear in front of hundreds of millions of people, and this promise that you can discover the best of the network, or that you'll have the best of the network kind of served up and changed every day. I would say, I mean, that is by all means a feature, and it was a feature well before this was a product for advertisers. So my hope is that it's the way we can continue to approach all of these revenue products, that they can continue to be core to the experience, built on top of the same kind of atomic elements of what our network is, and from there design products on top of them that work for advertisers, marketers, and whoever we're doing business with.
You've said in the past that the iPod is an inspiration rather than something like Facebook. Can you tell me, do you recall that?
Sure. One of the things that I actually really admire, I think I admire and really sets an Apple and Google apart from a lot of other technology companies in this space is we get so invested in our .com and the sort of this idea that this is our empire and this is our place to let out all of our kind of creative energy or our innovation and development. One thing that I think really defines Apple is they create these like perfectly focused products. It's not one big honkin' Uber device. It's the tablet is just the tablet. They don't have the clip-on keyboard because their whole thought is that now if you want the keyboard, you're going to get the laptop. The iPad is the iPad. And to that effect, there's something I've always been so enamored with, which is this the first version of the iPod was the perfect portable music player for that generation of technology. I mean, there was really no way to refine it for the technology that was available at the time, but the hard drives got smaller and the iPod got smaller. It was possible to put a color screen in the thing and put a color screen in the thing. It was possible to put a touch screen in the thing. Fifth generation iPod has a touch screen, and it just sort of moves with each new generation of technology and gets refined and refined and refined. But even the very first version of that was like perfectly refined for where the technology was. So by kind of separating the functions, they're able to master the form in all of their products. That's something that I would say most of the big .coms today don't have the discipline to do. Actually, Google, I think, is one of the few that's shown that. So Google.com is still Google search. They add on top of that a whole suite of products that work together to create a whole ecosystem, a whole Google ecosystem of products, much like Apple's whole ecosystem of products, where your iPod that you might fall in love with before you ever own a Mac, your iPod works better when you've got a Mac to sync it with, and when you add an iPad or an Apple TV into the mix, it gets even better and better. Similarly with Google, many of us I think we all started using Google search, but today you add Google Docs into the equation, you add Google Maps into the equation. You have this great ecosystem of products that on their own are perfect, focused, kind of usable products in whatever it is that they're trying to do. So anyway, that's a lot of how we think about Tumblr. We want it to not stray from what it's built for. It's a platform for creation, and that can take many, many different forms. And as the network starts to take shape, there's a lot of stuff that we can pile on top of it, and are often requested to pile on top of that by our users. We don't want this to be the same old social network. We want it to be perfect at what it is, and that means constantly removing, even as we're innovating. It means constantly kind of peeling away features and interface to hopefully get this thing, like the iPod, kind of perfect in what it sets out to do.
We need a term for that, reverse iteration or something. I want to ask you about devices like this, tablet devices, one of the themes here. Tumblr is a tool for creativity, or to empower creativity. Obviously, there's been a debate about whether tablets are consumption devices or will empower creativity. So what is your view on that? And tell me how it changes things for you.
So I don't know about tablets specifically. I'll just say in general, I think that there's this incredible, I guess when I think about creators and serving creators, well, first of all, why I care so much about serving creators is because, as far as I'm concerned, they're the ones making the stuff that makes life interesting. All this media that we when we sit down in a theater, when we turn on our TV, when we fire up our RSS reader, when we browse the web, refresh our Twitter timeline, refresh your Tumblr dashboard, you're consuming content that is being created by some talented people out there, and increasingly it's a distributed set of kind of indie creators, people who are using Instagram rather than raising money to produce feature films. It's increasingly becoming a big chunk of the media that we're consuming. So why I get excited about, so when I think about serving that creative community, I see sort of a stack of products that are kind of built around them. So the first kind of basic layer is the hardware that they use to actually make the raw media, that they use to shoot the video, that they use to take the photos. Then on top of that, there's the software that they use to kind of manipulate the media and take it to the next level, and then from there they distribute it, and then from there they profit from it. But those kind of base two layers have been moved so far in the last 3 to 5 years with these new smartphones, tablets, and really the iOS and Android ecosystem. So you just think about the kind of creative horsepower in an iPhone today, where it's got this brilliant camera built into it. It's got a brilliant high-resolution screen. It's got an ecosystem of these creative apps that let you do all sorts of brilliant stuff to your photos much, much more easily, and with a whole lot more, I don't know, just with many more novel tools than I had 5 years ago, and certainly I grew up with back when you pretty much had big clunky video software like Avid, and eventually big clunky video software like iMovie, and Photoshop. It was pretty much all you have. Today you have your choice of hundreds, thousands of these brilliant apps for doing all sorts of wonky things to your photos, for creating all sorts of bizarre edits of your video, that sort of thing.
Was that part of the inspiration for the photo set
Absolutely,
application?
yeah.
So this is photo set. This is my photo set.
Brilliant. It's a beautiful photo set, by the way. So photo set was an app that we launched to kind of start to play in this ecosystem ourselves. So the way we think about it, this ecosystem today, one of the things that's sort of the most, I think this has been a kind of a subtle thing to catch, but one of the things that I think is, I'm happy to see, is that this ecosystem showed up and we started to see all of these tools, the hipstomatics, the, what are the other good ones? Hipstomatics and cross-process and all these things that let you create art, create media from your phone or from your tablet. Then Instagram came along and put stars in everybody's eyes for building their own network. This idea that, all right, don't just create the creative app and sell it for $2. Build the creative app, give it away for free, and build a network around it so you can go raise money and then eventually sell ads or sell out or something like that. There's been now a return as the kind of next generation of those apps kind of crashed and burned, and I think kind of showed that Instagram was a phenomenon in itself and not one that could be easily replicated over and over again. Developers have returned to this focus on building these great tools, these great little apps, selling them for a couple bucks, and leveraging the existing networks. Mm-hmm. So increasingly, we're really embracing that community and doing what we can, doing the best that we can to make Tumblr the best network for them to leverage, making it a place where if you build a great creative tool, something like Paper for the iPad that lets you draw those beautiful illustrations, mm-hmm. you build a tool like that and build a killer Tumblr integration, you're going to have all of your users pushing, or a big chunk of your users pushing their artwork into the Tumblr network, where it's going to get a huge amount of visibility, where we're going to do everything that we can to promote your app to get more people to go back to your app and spend $2, $8, whatever it is, in the app store ecosystem, where you have potential to profit majorly from an app that you've put a few weeks, a few months of development into. So giving them I think a much more realistic path and a much more realistic path to kind of sustainable development for these sort of creative apps. So anyway, I'm sorry. So Photoset, though, is on the other side. That's how we kind of think about how Tumblr fits into that ecosystem. At the same time, we're incredibly excited about this ecosystem and want to participate in it more and more. So that's where Photoset fits in. That's our kind of toe in the water, kind of putting our first specialized creative app out there.
Well, I look forward to playing with that. I think we have time for one or two questions. If there is anyone who would like to ask a question, raise your hand. If not, I have got another question. Mm-hmm. I mentioned to you that a good friend of mine was a technology correspondent in San Francisco when Facebook was a very young company, and Mark Zuckerberg would talk about it eventually being a $100 billion company. He might have overshot a little bit, but for you, what's your ultimate goal? You're empowering creators already, but do you have a long-term goal?
Look, I would be thrilled to be employed by this company in 30 years. This is, it's such an unbelievably fulfilling career to get to, one, be a creative person working with a team of unbelievably creative people. I think if there's one thing that really defines our engineering culture and our team's culture at Tumblr, it's that we've assembled an incredibly creative group of people made up of illustrators, animators, musicians, photographers, who are excited about the tools that we're putting out there into the world, not only because they want to use them, but because they know that the next day we're going to be just completely blown away, completely surprised by the way that these creators all over the world are using it. Mm-hmm. So that's the thing that gets us out of bed early in the morning, is that we get to put this stuff out there and get to immediately kind of bask in all the amazing stuff that people do mm-hmm. with it. It's just, again, it's an incredibly rewarding experience. And I think it's a community right now that is unfortunately kind of underserved. If you look at most of the big networks out there today, they're really built around sharing. The idea that we're communicating with our peers, with our community, that we're sharing links to things. Really all the other big networks today are built around sharing links to things, mm-hmm. much more than they are about making anything. So my hope is that we can be one of the few technology companies really putting effort into building tools to empower creators to make the stuff that we love.
David, a real pleasure talking to you.
I appreciate it.
Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Good. Thanks a lot.